morning, everyone. I am truly honored to be here today, to be able to be with all of you and to tell you all my story. I have to say I am extremely nervous, so please bear with me. This is the first time I've actually spoken this story out in public, and I know I will continue to do my story and really act as inspiration for others who might be going through a similar experience. So 2 years ago, I was at Steelhead Falls on Earth Day. Beautiful summer day, or actually it was more like spring, it was in April, and the sun is shining beautifully overhead. The Deschutes River is off to my right, and as I'm bending over to pull some cheatgrass, gently cleaning and nurturing Mother Earth, I feel this funny lump in my throat. It just feels really out of place. It wouldn't be normally something that would be there. And I thought, well, I'm really, really healthy. I'm just going to let it go for a week. Why not worry? I've been so healthy during my life. Well, a week later, it's still there. And I'm beginning to get concerned. What the heck is going on? So I go to my doctor. We talk. And he says, yeah, those things are really usually benign. Let's not worry about it, but we will do a biopsy just to be sure. So a week later, I go in and get a biopsy done. I hear the same thing from those folks. They say, hey, it's usually just a really benign thing, no worries, we'll get back to you in a couple of days. A couple days later, I get a call from my doctor. This is Dr. A. And I want to tell you that you have medullary thyroid cancer. And it's really, really serious. It's really a rare form, and you need to go see a specialist. So here I am in my kitchen, pretty much ready to cry my eyes out because I've been the healthiest person throughout my life, and here I have this major form of cancer and don't know what to do, and I'm really scared and really alone. So I continued through my life for the next couple of weeks, canceling all of my appointments that I had had, all my great vacations. And I started to develop some really, really serious headaches that I don't normally have. Again, I decide, well, I better go to the doctor and have those checked out. I don't know what they might be. They might be nothing. I go to the doctor and he says, well, yeah, we better do an MRI. Let's do a brain MRI, just to be sure. With your history, you want to be sure. Yeah, I go in and have the brain MRI, and they said it did look a little suspicious. There was a little shadow. And I thought, oh, wow, okay, well, I'll wait and get the news back in a few days, and it'll probably be all okay. A couple days later, I'm shopping in Costco, doing my life, busily, kind of sleeping like I normally am throughout life at that point. And I get this phone call from my doctor. Again, hi, this is Dr. A, and I have some really bad news. You have a diffuse astrocytoma. And again, it's really, really serious, and you need to go see someone right away. I went out to my car, and I just cried and cried and cried. I felt so alone at that point. My relatives lived long distance. I didn't have my beautiful Aunt Jody there to help me, but I knew she was there in spirit. So I carried on with my life the best I knew how, and I began my journey of transforming the fear of cancer into the joy of living. I went to my surgeries, which were 2 very, very, very long and tedious surgeries. The first one began in August and lasted 8 hours. And then I went into the second one. And it was at the second surgery that my life really began to change. Right before I went into my surgery, I was laying in my hospital bed getting ready to wheel out to the operating room. And I had my beautiful aunt and my brother and my husband there at the time. And I thought, man, I might not make it through this one. I might end up on the ceiling or stuck somewhere in between. I don't know what's going to happen with me. And she was sitting next to my bedside, And she asked me one big question that I'll never forget. She asked, "Do you really want to live?" And I said, "Yes, I want to live." At that point, my life changed. And I was wheeled into the operating room, and I actually felt very relaxed about where I was getting ready to go. I knew that I was going to be okay. I saw my brain all over the walls. I was fascinated by my body, really getting in touch with myself at that point. And I came out of that surgery wonderfully. And I really began to feel the transformation process begin at that point. The next couple months were tough. They were my healing process. Involved a lot of integration and, again, a lot of physical healing. I began to realize that I have an intuitive side that I've ignored for so very, very long. I'd had it ever since I was a child. My colors became brighter. Just the world began to just explode for me. And I found energy work, and it really, really touched home with me. I got into the Healing Touch program, went to Boulder almost every month, really hooked up with that community, and just learned that I can really tap into my inner wisdom and really begin to love myself in the process. And as I realized how much those nurses and doctors had supported me, I really realized that my life was going to make a change and that I wanted to support others. So after that, I began to really go into being an energy healer. And now I'm actually going to get ready to step out and get my master's degree in social work. So I'm really, really excited. But I want to instill with you 3 truths that I have learned through my process. Number 1, everywhere I look, I see the face of God. And I know that I am one with God. And I wake up every morning to be grateful to be alive. Thank you very much.
So our guest speaker today has been in the human happiness business for over 35 years. As a professional speaker, she always wants to leave her audience with pearls of wisdom, and I guarantee you today will be no exception. As a hypnotherapist and certified timeline counselor, she sees miracles as her clients transform their limiting beliefs into resourceful and powerful thoughts. As an author, her goal is to inspire people to live in harmony and say yes to the whispers of their soul. Jody is somebody that I have personally known for over 25 years, and we've done all kinds of cool things together. She is the person that gave me the kick in the pants I needed to get busy and write my first book. So I'm always grateful to her for that. But we've done so many things, and she is such an amazing woman. I am really, really thrilled that we all get to share in her wisdom today. So please help me welcome Jody Stevenson.
Good morning. I am so happy to be here with all of you again. It's been a while, and I'm so happy that my beautiful niece, after all she's been through, has joined this spiritual tribe. You're all so wonderful. And of course, I love your minister. Oh my God, where is she? Where'd she go? Oh, there you are. I truly, truly love you, Jane. We really have been through a lot together. So thank you for inviting me. 2,500 years ago, an old man could be seen walking across the king's courtyard in China. And he was heading off to the west to the Hangkou Pass. And fortunately for you and me, the gatekeeper knew who he was. He was leaving the kingdom. He had been the head sage or the head librarian for the king. And he was leaving because he was 82 and he wanted to retire. And he was really fed up with the political scene of the day. Okay. So he decides to retire in the desert. He gets to the Hangkou Pass. The gatekeeper says, "Oh my God, I know who you are. Please, Master, write down all that you know so that your wisdom will not be lost." So he said, "Okay." And I have this vision that the gatekeeper got him a cup of tea, because I think that's what they did in those days. And he sat there, and Lao Tzu, which means wise old man, wrote the Tao Te Ching. He used 5,000 Chinese characters. Most of them are not in use anymore. And he wrote what was to become, centuries later, the second most popular book sold on the planet, next to the Bible. There is so much wisdom in this book. About 10 years ago, I started to study it and teach it. I'm a religious science minister, and I decided to start studying it. I don't know why. I guess the divine said, "You will study this," and then I started teaching it. And about 2 years ago, I got the guidance that I wanted to write a book that combined my 12-step background, my neurolinguistic program training, my religious science training, and Taoism. And my goal was to keep it 100 pages, under 100 pages, because the average American only reads 26 pages of a 200-page book, unless there's a lot of sex in it. Just saying. There is no sex in this, but there's good stuff. So I wrote a book called The Trio of Treasures, Embracing the Wisdom of the Tao. So before we get into the treasures, I'd like to get into and talk a little bit about the trio of troubles in our life. When Sarah walked into my office, she looked frazzled, exhausted, and depressed. She flopped down on my couch. She said, "You know what? I just need 30 more minutes a day. That's all. I just need 30 more minutes a day." And I looked at her. I said, "Here's the deal, Sarah. You don't get 30 more minutes a day. You can't buy, borrow, beg, or steal 30 minutes a day, more minutes a day. Like the rest of all human beings and living beings on this planet, you have 1,440 minutes to live your life every 24 hours. And once you spend those minutes, you can never get them back. Time is the most precious thing that you and I have." So there's a new condition in America today. How many of you have either said or heard someone say, "I feel crazy busy"? There is an illusion that time has sped up, but there is a new epidemic in America today. It darkens the experience of our finances, of our relationships, of our careers, and especially our health. According to the experts, America has the same symptoms as a child with ADD. According to USA Today, Americans need 42 hours a day to complete our to-do lists. We are rushing through life. We are coming through the age of information into the age of inattentiveness. We're going to be hearing more and more about the age of inattentiveness. Americans hate to wait, and we are not paying attention to the things that we need to. You know, think about what is it that's causing us to feel more energized and more busy, and what is it? And you know, I got to tell you, on the way here, I realized that I did not call my assistant and tell him to send out a contract. If you don't mind, I just need to make a quick phone call. It won't take long. Let's see. What did I do with my phone? I think I put it over here. I'm always losing my phone. And here's my phone. Oh, boy, I'm always so glad when I find it. Let me see here. Finally, I found my phone. So, Reverend Robin, would you help me? I got to call Jeff. So, my number is 720. Oh my God, it takes way too long. Now, I am not recommending we go back to this. This weighs 5 pounds. I carry this all over the country to speak. You don't have to. I will say that right after Steve Jobs died, I read an article. I wish I had kept it. I went back to try to find a Newsweek time. And in the article, it said that historians 100 years from now will say that this new technology will be compared to the fire. That this technology has influenced us so much and changed the course of humanity just like fire. Just a little information about this. There are about 8.7 billion people on the planet right now. 5.6 billion have cell phones. 3.5 billion have toothbrushes. Because of this, and I love my phone, but you and I can be on for 24 hours a day. We can be available for 24 hours. We can have TV on for 24 hours a day. There is so much technology, and we have to learn how to turn it off in order to live in harmony. Dr. Edward Hallowell, who wrote the book Crazy Busy, writes, hope, optimism, confidence, and enthusiasm, positive emotional energies, make for happiness and success these days, just as they always have. The difference now is that it is especially difficult to maintain those attitudes because everyone is in such a hurry. The great modern-day philosopher Lily Tomlin wrote, for fast-acting relief, try slowing down. Trio of trouble number 2, judging. There was a young couple that bought their first house. They moved in the morning of their first breakfast, and there was a breakfast nook, and they looked out over their neighbor's yard. And they're sitting there eating breakfast, and they notice that the neighbor's clothes are dirty. She's hanging dirty clothes. I thought, well, that's odd. Then the next morning, she was out there, and she was hanging dirty clothes. And I thought, oh my God. And this went on for about 7 or 8 mornings. And on the 9th morning, she was hanging clean clothes. And the wife said, oh my God, finally, she's hanging clean clothes. And her husband just very gently tapped her and said, honey, she's hanging clean clothes because I cleaned our windows. Judging is as common as leaves growing on trees, and it is as devastating as drinking under the influence, driving under the influence, driving and drinking under the influence. Taoism tells us that we are the source of our own sorrow. And the reason for that is that we judge other people. We have right and wrong thinking. We have good and bad, black and white. If we were to be a pure Taoist, we would move into the mentality of life just is. Life just is. Who am I to say another person's path is wrong? I've been a counselor and a minister for 35 years. Can you imagine somebody sitting in my office and I'm going, you did what? I mean, it's been so fast. Sometimes I'll go, well, that was creative of you. But if we can just let everybody live their own life, there's a belief in the neuro-linguistic programming and Boy, do I get pushback on this when I teach my students. And the principle, the presupposition is that everyone is doing the best they can at any given moment. They go, it's not true. Yes, it is. We're all doing the best we can. Let go of judgments. Trio of treasure number 3. Controlling. How many of you have ever had the experience where someone tried to control you? Okay, about 99%. How many of you have ever tried, be honest, to control another situation or somebody else? About 99. We have all done it. We have all done it. When we control, we're saying to God, excuse me, I'll take over. And the times, I'm so sorry this keeps happening. Put it below my lips. Okay, how's that? Okay, good. My apologies. So when we can let go and truly trust that the person in front of us is, first of all, doing the best they can, and secondly, they're on their own path. And I was coaching someone the other day. I coach people who want to be great wedding officiants. I've officiated over 1,000 weddings, so I figure I'm an expert. So I was talking to someone, and they said, what do you do when you're working with a new couple on their wedding and you know they shouldn't get married? And that's a great question. Here's what you do. You let them go ahead. Because who are you to say that? They have learnings. They're supposed to be together. It's okay. She went, oh, you mean I can let go and let God? And I went, yeah, that's the idea. Yeah. Let go. It's not our nature to control. All right, so take a deep breath. Much more fun to talk about the treasures. 5,000 years ago, the saints and sages of India believed that a human being only has 2 desires. And I so believe that's true today that my entire work is based on this. What are the 2 desires? A peaceful mind and a joyful heart. And Taoism reminds us that as beings, we are supposed to live in harmony. We are supposed to, by nature, have a peaceful mind and joyful heart. Yeah, we all have clunky times. But ultimately, that's what we are seeking. So the trio of treasures can transform sorrow into joy, sickness into health, poverty into riches, and hate into love. The first trio of treasures is simplicity. Steve Jobs said, that's been my mantra. Did you know he was Buddhist? Or he studied Buddhism? He said, that's been my mantra, focus and simplicity. Simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple, but it's worth it in the end. Because once you get there, you can move mountains. To live simply means to live in flow. To live simply means to embrace the center point. And to live simply means to live in harmony. Sanskrit is the oldest language on the planet. And the word for harmony, for balance, is sama. When I lived in Portland, Oregon, I used to have this on my license plate. Sama means the center point between ease and effort. And we go back and forth. So what happens, though, the dance is like this. But what happens when we get super busy and we get super stressed, we get away from our center point and we get out here. And then we get further and further away from our center point. And then we go into our addictions and our compulsions. And way out here, we're into terrorism. Sama, the center point between ease and effort. If we're efforting too much, we have to ease. We have to take some time out. If we're easing too much, we have to get up and be productive. It's our nature. The voice of simplicity asks not, how much can I get or do, but what brings me joy? Trio of treasure number 2. Leo Buscaglia, who was yes, you know him, yes. He was a professor at one of the universities, USC, oh, UNC. USC, okay. And he went to, and this was in the 70s and 80s, I believe, and he went to his Power Up, and he said, I want to teach a class on love. And they said, well, that's really stupid. No one is going to want to teach a class on love or take a class on love. And lo and behold, he has standing room only in huge auditoriums. So the trio of treasure is kindness. Too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. How many of you have been to the Pike Place Market in Seattle, Washington? Oh, many of you. Okay, good. So you can picture it with me. It's an outdoor market, and it faces the San Juan Islands. Excuse me. Could you hand me some water? Thanks. I come from dry, but it's dry here. So the Pike Place Market is actually very European in many ways. It's an open-air market, and it's electric. I mean, people are yelling, and the vendors are talking, and there's lots of people around, and the visuals are like, oh my God, there's so much here. And in the early spring of 1984, I was down at the Pike's Place Market. I lived in Seattle. I went to school in Seattle. And I was down at the market because I was having breakfast with my father. And at the time, by his own admission, he had become a Skid Row bum. He was living on the streets of Seattle. So we were sitting in the market, and I remember feeling such sorrow and sadness because our conversation was so frustrating to me. We couldn't go deeper than, hi, how are the friends at home back in Minnesota? So we had breakfast. I would meet with him once in a while and take him to breakfast. He went off to he lived in a little doorway in Pioneer Square. And I thought, well, I'm here. I might as well get some fish. I mean, you get fish at Pike Place Market. So I went upstairs where the fish area was, and I walked in, and there were, rows of fish vendors on either side selling their fishes. And as I walked in, I noticed that there was, at the end, there was a vendor behind his case who looked just like Santa Claus. I mean, he was big and burly and white hair and a white beard. And so I walked over to him and I said, I'd like a pound of king salmon, please. And he looked at me and he said, young lady, I'm out. And I have to tell you, in that moment, I had nothing left in me for another disappointment in my life. So I stood and looked at him, and tears just started streaming down my face. And he looks at me and he goes, Fred, fly me a king. We have a live one here. And all of a sudden, this king salmon comes flying over the heads of all of us. He catches it. He wraps it up. He puts it in his left hand. He comes around his case and he said, young lady, you look like you need a shoulder to cry on. That was it. I put my head on his shoulder. And I said, I just had breakfast with my Skid Row father, and I'm about to lose my home, and my husband has a girlfriend, and my dog is dying, and I have 2 babies, 2 little boys, and I don't know what's going to happen to them. And the worst is I'm in my first year of ministerial school and I don't even believe in God. I don't know what's going to happen. He's just holding me. So in Taoism, there's a phrase that no storm lasts forever. Think about that. Even nature can't keep a storm going forever. So as my internal storm started to slow down, I step away from him, and he looks at me and he says, "Young lady," he's holding the salmon, "young lady, I want you to hear me." Okay. I know you're going through a rough time. You're in a difficult chapter, but you're powerful. You're strong. You will get through this. And I want you to know that there is nothing bigger than God. Do you hear me, young lady? Nothing bigger than God. Now you take this salmon home and you go love your children like never before. I did. I believed him. So I went home, I got the kids, they were at Montessori, had one in diapers still. So that afternoon, I built a big fire and we played Legos all afternoon. I cried, I laughed, I cried, I laughed. My kids were playing, and the dog was just attached to me. We had salmon pizza that night. And about 4 or 5 days later, I went back. And I walked into the fish area, and he was behind his case, and he saw me, and I saw him. He comes running around, and we give each other a great big hug. And he says, "Oh, young lady, you sure look better this week than you did last week." I know. And I said, I can't thank you enough for your kindness. I really needed your shoulder, I guess. And so I'm here for a couple of reasons, for three. One, I want to pay you for the salmon. And secondly, I noticed I left a big blob of mascara on your shoulder, and I'm really sorry. I want to clean your jacket for you. And I have some chocolates. He said, "Okay, young lady, this is how we're going to handle this one. You are not going to pay for the salmon. The jacket's already cleaned. But I will take those chocolates." Now, I met this man twice, and I never knew his name. But the act of kindness that he gave me that day changed my life forever. I believed him, and he was right. I did get through that chapter. And I would encourage all of us that when we see people, we're out in grocery stores and Starbucks and airports, and when we see someone that really needs a shoulder, somehow if we just pat them on the back, or if we just say, "Can I help you? Do you need something?" Just an act of kindness will completely uplift the consciousness of humanity. My King Salmon Sage changed my life forever, and he reminded me that there's nothing bigger than God. Nothing. No human experience is bigger than God. Trio of treasures number 3. And I do believe it's the hardest. And that is allowing. Just allow. Know what you want and stay focused on that. And then let it go. Know the what, trust the how. Know the what, trust the how. As I journeyed through ministerial school in the 80s, you could never have told me, or I could never have told you in the early 80s that I would end up at the Portland Church of Religious Science, and I would meet one of the most special people in my life, Robin Ryan. I remember you in the hug line. We've been through a lot. And my wonderful old practitioner. We trained together, Keith Adine. Wonderful. My journey, I never could have figured out. We don't get to figure out how. We just need to know what we want. Know the what and trust the how. Taoism reminds us to flow with life and live in the mystery. With the Tao, there's no need to solve the different contradictions in our lives. We just need to know what we want and then trust the how and enjoy the process to unfold. Lao Tzu says, when you are content, when you are content to simply be yourself and don't compare or compete, everybody will respect you. To close, I want to share with you that the Tao Te Ching has 81 verses. And over the centuries, many people, many scholars and students and people who know Chinese, and there's been much debate about what Lao Tzu wrote that day. But every single person has said one thing, and that is about the 25th verse. And they say that indeed Lao Tzu used the word great. Great is boundless. Boundless is eternally flowing, ever flowing. It is constantly returning to know the way. Understand the great within yourself. Thank you so much for having me to my Tao party. I love being here with you, and I celebrate your greatness. Thank you so much. Thank you.